Bismillah. We're in part 3 now. And we just mentioned the story of Abu Hanifa versus the atheist, right? We just mentioned Abu Hanifa versus the atheist. So we're going to take this a step further. And show how absurd their belief is. Many of the atheists in reality are, I made up this word, particlist. Why? Abu Hanifa said that when he came to the shore and the boat, he's saying, what if I told you? What if I told you? And this boat, it formed itself. The planks and everything came together. And the atheist, he said what? This is something that's what? Absurd. It can't happen by itself. So, but it's not just that the boat, the planks and themselves came, the planks and other things, and metal and different things came together on its own. What do we know? The bodies, even from what they say, talk about the materials, because the material call them that name, the bodies are composed of particles. The bodies are composed of what? Particles. So not only is it absurd to say that the actual, like a plank of wood came together and formed a boat with other planks. Those planks themselves are composed of what? Particles. And so they're saying now the particles that make up that plank also had to what? Come together, all by themselves. What does a plank of wood come from? It comes from a what? Tree. So now what's the tree made out of? Particles. So they're saying that these particles by themselves formed into what? Complex systems, all what? Right. By themselves. You follow how now you see the board could not form itself, and or let's say the board could not assemble itself with other planks boards. So that doesn't happen. So the plank itself is made from what? Particles. So now they're saying the particles what? Assemble themselves and inform what? Complex systems. This is what? Something the mind rejects.
Does it come from a tree?
Yeah. And the tree is made of what? Those same what? Particles. How could those particles by themselves form a tree by themselves?
So the agent said that the boat couldn't make itself. So if you said the boat can't make itself, how can you say that the universe created itself? It's more complex than
the boat.
The boat,
of course.
So you contradict. So in other words, they just saying that there's a creator.
Yeah,
there got to be a creator.
Without saying
he's saying it, but he didn't
like
say it, but he's saying it. That boat can't fix itself, can't come together. So you said the universe came together out of particles?
Yeah.
The polar particles, I'm just saying, but he contradicts his own words.
It's not, the atheists, don't they pretend to be intellectuals? But when you break down their belief, you see the whole thing.
They ain't got nothing to stand on.
They don't have anything to stand on. But you need to know how to defeat them.
Because if you don't have the knowledge,
you won't be able to. Because look at, when we talked about what? The rational impossibility does not become possible. So when the Christian tried to debate them, what's the Christian going to say? Because the atheist is going to bring up, you believe in a complete what? Absurdity. That an infant became the creator of the universe. What can the Christian say? So his whole use of the intellect becomes like mush. But for us, alhamdulillah, our whole belief is rationally consistent. Rationally consistent. And it's not philosophy. No, because we believe in more than just what comes across with the senses. We believe in the unseen, the light. Okay, so we deal with what? Refutation of the Particlists, and briefly, refutation of chains. All of this, they are jammed. We say alhamdulillah for the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, for the Sunni scholars. Because they what? Systematize the belief, making it easy for us as common people to what? Understand. Okay. So, how do you refute the issue of chance? We gave the example. If you had like 10 cards, and you put 1 through 10.
1 through 10,
And then the chance, and you put them in a bag, and you shook up the bag. Okay? The chance of randomly reaching in the bag and pulling those numbers out in sequential order, 1 through 10. Now, is that a very complex process?
No.
You only have what?
10 cards.
10 cards, reaching in the bag and pulling them out in sequential order, meaning number 1, and then number 2, and then number 3, and number 4, to number 10. That's not a complicated process. But statistically, and they love numbers, right? Statistically, the chance of doing it is 1 in 3.4 million.
Can't go off the chain.
Yeah, no, you said it. It can't be what? They won't accept what? Chance. It's 1 out of 3.4 million, statistically speaking. You follow? Statistically, it's different than whatever Allah will to be, it shall be. But we're saying according to them, because they don't believe in God. So then statistically, it's 1 in what? 3.4 million. And if we add just 5 more cards, again, is this 15 cards? Is that a great number of cards? No. How many particles do you think make up your hand? Allah knows. Even from what they would say cells. They would say hundreds of millions of cells make up your hand. Okay. You add 1 to 15 to get it, what? Again, sequential order, number 1 to number 2 to number 3. The chance is 1 in 1.3 trillion. So what would 1.3 trillion look like? It would look like this. 1,300,000,000 million, a billion, a trillion. So the chance of getting those cards out in sequential order would be 1 in 1.3 trillion. Again, is this a complex procedure? No. What do you think is more complex? A bag with 15 cards in it, or your eye? Your eye, of course, right? So we know that the particles by themselves, let's add this here. This is important. The particles could not arrange themselves into complex systems all by themselves. I never saw the people who built this library. Maybe I did at once. I don't know when they built it. Maybe I drove by. Maybe I saw it in their building. I don't remember. But if somebody, the librarian, said, well, you know what happened was that there was a big tornado, and there used to be a brickyard next door. And that brickyard hit the tornado hit the brickyard, and it assembled this building as it is. Statistically, it's so far-fetched that they don't what? They would never accept it. Yeah, statistically.
Because like you say, they believe.
Yeah, they just 1 through 15. This is what? 1.3 trillion. So what about a tornado? You have your brickyard next door, and the tornado hits the brickyard and it stacks up the buildings, and it gives you just the outer form of the building. Now we talk about the electrical, the wiring and the plumbing and all of that. Just the outer form. Would they accept it? No, you have a tornado, so they presumably, if it's a brickyard, they may have what? Cement, and it's raining. So when it rains, the bricks good, and then the rain, when the bricks are stacking up, and then the cement would be between what? The mortar, between each brick. Does anybody accept this? So what do we know? We know for sure the universe could not have happened by
Chance.
So they say it, but can't accept it.
exactly.
Chance.
What did Brother Talha remind us? Shaitan.
Then
Their lives. But they deceived the people. You follow? They deceived. Because they will dump all these theories on the people, and they sound, to the ignorant person, they sound deep. But when you know about Tawheed, then you see this is insensible. Even by their claims, much like, when I mentioned the Revelation, it's about even by their claims, what their claims are insensible.
absurd.
Absurd, yeah. Okay, let's stop here. Walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulillah.